On this episode of the Make Ideas Reality podcast.
I also liked your pronunciation of my last name. It was completely wrong, but I liked it. And well, with disassembly, I mean more like destroying and try to see what's inside. It just doesn't look nice. If some Arduino does some job, then you press a button and somewhere else something happens, and in between, well, nobody knows what happens. But if I pull a lever and two gears turn and then something happens somewhere, it looks interesting. Yeah, that I realized is I was doing the project so quick. So I was designing it on the computer, then I built it like go, go, go. Then it was done. I made some nice shots, and then I put it away and started it all over again. And right now I can just take my time with the build, enjoy the actual building process, which is super important if you want to do this for fun.
Hello and welcome to Make Ideas Reality, the podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to everyday creative heroes making their ideas reality that wouldn't necessarily get their story heard. I hope to inspire you with their stories, give you courage to leave your comfort zone, think big, and be the badass creator you are meant to be. I'm Justin White, aka The Garage Avenger. Let's do this! Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality podcast. Today's guest is a crazy, talented Dutchman with brilliant ideas. His chicken pusher machine had me completely in tears. With a little workshop nestled in Amsterdam suburbs that's no bigger than a couple of cupboards. Welkom till the show, the practical engineer, Emiel Noorlander.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Did you like that half Dutch, half Norwegian welcome?
Yes, I liked it. I also liked your pronunciation of my last name. It was completely wrong, but I liked it.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you need to say it in Dutch now.
It's Noorlander.
Noorlander?
Yes.
Huh. It's double O though, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Because, I just went straight to English and went Noorlander. I
liked it.
I apologize. It sounds cooler, I think, actually, than Noorlander.
Yeah, it was a cool pronunciation.
So, guys, the practical engineer, Emiel, I saw him, what was it? Geez, it was about over a year ago, probably nearly a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he had this project which popped up on my feed of this umbrella backpack. And I watched this video and I thought, this is a brilliant idea. Like, how did this video not go mental viral? Because this is awesome idea. And basically it was a backpack which you pulled like a pull string, kind of like a parachute, and there was a spring mechanism, flipped a umbrella up and over your head and popped up, and it was just awesome and mind-blowing. So I've been following Emiel from that point on, and I watched a couple of projects, and then I started talking to Tyler Bell, and Tyler Bell has been spending some time with Emiel at, was it Workbench Con you guys were at? Yeah. And
we met online just after Maker Central.
Yeah.
And then we really met at Workbench Con last year, or this year.
So that was great. And I sort of got me like more interested again. I was like, I need to get back into some of his work. So, and then basically I've been watching over the last year, and you've grown heaps, because I think you were under 50,000 subscribers or something when I first started watching, and now you're over 100,000. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I want to start off this podcast, as we always sort of do, and talk a little bit about your journey, how you got into making things and making YouTube videos, and some of the big moments along the way.
Yeah, well, it goes back to when I was a little kid, and I've always been interested in how things around me work. So as a kid, I was often trying to disassemble machines, old video recorders, and well, radios, everything else I could get my hands on. And well, with disassembly, I mean more like destroying and try to see what's inside. And I have attempted to put those things back together once or twice, but usually the disassembly process made it too definitive. But I always ended up with some nice and interesting parts that came from the inside, some gears or other things, motors, stuff I had no idea what to do with, but they looked cool. But I was not really making it at the time. Then when I got older and older, I still wondered how the things around me work. And at some point I started my engineering course, still didn't make a lot of things. And then during my course, they tried to teach us how to make stuff from a book and from a PowerPoint presentation, which all seemed really weird to me.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. So during my studies, I started to teach myself some things. We got some basics of 3D modeling. And the day after that course, I downloaded the software, started to teach myself more 3D modeling. And I modeled a gyro watch winder that I had seen online. But I had no tools. So I went back to the close university. I used a laser cutter to cut out my 3D modeled watchfinder and assembled it all on the floor of my student room with still, like, by that time, 20 euros of tools, just the basics that I needed for this project. And that's what got me started with things building, basically. During that project, I realized that I learned way more about 3D modeling and making stuff, laser cutters, than I had during my whole studies up to that moment. Because you have something in your mind, and then you need to figure out how to actually model that or how to make that. And yeah, this was the moment that I realized, well, learning from a book is kind of pointless with this kind of stuff. And from there on, I just expanded and made my project a bit bigger and learned more and more.
But you work with, like, basically doing the same thing, right? Your day
I
job.
work, right now I do. Back then I didn't. Right now I work as a mechanical engineer for a company where we make a lot of prototypes. So, well, mainly prototypes, basically. So the customer has a vague idea, and we turn that into a product by building something and testing it. And that's very similar. We have the very similar mindset as I have on my channel right there. We just design something and then build it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, and then redesign and iterate. We don't calculate a whole lot. What we do where necessary, but we prefer to just see from experience.
Isn't that interesting? Because I would think most companies are this company that, like, are adverse to risk, so they would, like, overcalculate everything, and spend all this time on the computer trying to make sure it would work, on the computer first, and then go into production. But I think that's kind of refreshing to hear that there's companies still out there that just kind of get their hands dirty just to see if something actually works. It's kind of very similar to the maker mentality, right?
Yeah. Well, I studied aeronautical engineering because, well, I liked airplanes. And I was like, oh, aeronautical engineering sounds nice. And then during my studies, I realized that everything has to be calculated 10 times, 20 times. If you can make it 1 gram lighter, well, you should, but not 2. And that just drove me crazy. I just want to make stuff. And well, at my job, we still design a lot on the computer, but then we build it and test it, and we see if it works or if it doesn't work. So it's fairly close to the maker community mindset.
Because there are things you can't really foresee until you've actually built it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, especially like the user experience, how something handles, how it feels, you just have to feel it and see if it works.
That's super interesting. How yeah. So you were just talking, like, you're doing this as a job, and then how did you get into making videos at the same time? Was this at the same time you started this job, or was it separate times? Or
That was during my previous job. Actually, I was still making stuff at home in my free time, and I had a 1.5 hour one-way commute, so 2 to 3 hours on a bad day in total. And I was like, oh, I like making stuff. Maybe I should see if there's some podcasts about making stuff. So I googled making stuff podcast, and I came to making it, which sounded nice. So I downloaded it, and then I discovered this whole maker community that exists. And I really like that concept, because if I make something in my shed, and well, it works or it doesn't work, or it's funny or it's not funny, I'm the only one who either enjoys it or learns from it, or yeah, I'm the only one. Maybe my girlfriend and my parents will see it, but that's it.
mm.
And well, with this online video concept, I discovered that if I make something and I learn something from it and I share it online, other people can learn from it as well. And hopefully they will be inspired to do their own project and learn from those projects. So it really multiplies fast that way.
Yeah, because you're by doing that, you're spreading the joy that you have building it to others, and I think that's really valuable. As a,
Yeah.
you've been working. How long have you had your channel running for?
I uploaded a couple of videos, and just every now and then, and whenever I had the time, and no real thought behind it, like 4 or 5. And then in August 2018, so close to 2 years ago now, I had 100 subscribers, I think, at the time. I decided to really go for it. I don't like to do things halfway. I like to go for it or not go for it.
Yeah.
So I decided to really go for it, and grow the channel and get some actual views on my videos. So that's almost 2 years ago. And well, I did some preparation, got a nice name, got a nice logo, and just started making videos every week at that point, which was very tough, but also rewarding.
Yeah. So what the making a project every single week, you have to kind of um let's say simplify things a little bit, because you can't make a very complicated project in a week, especially if you're working a full-time job and all the other things you do in your life, right? So um what it seems like to me is a lot of your project ideas are really kind of simple and beautiful. There's not too much like crazy electronics. There's some motors and things, but they're very simply controlled. um, you know, simple switches and that sort of stuff is really, it's not overcomplicated, unlike my projects.
Well, they're overcomplicated in a different way. I try to keep electronics as much out of my projects as I can, because one, I don't know a whole lot about it, and I don't want to admit that. Well, I do want to admit it. And two, it just doesn't look nice. If some Arduino does some job, then you press a button and somewhere else something happens, and in between, well, nobody knows what happens.
Mm.
But if I pull a lever and 2 gears turn and then something happens somewhere, it looks interesting. And especially if you want to challenge yourself, which what I want to do, and you want to make a video that looks interesting, then the mechanical solution is often way nicer to look at.
I love that aesthetic side of things. I didn't really think about it like that. Like it is like when you see cogs and gears moving instead of like a motor spinning something, it's aesthetically better to look at. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it's like that.
Mm.
So often I look at funny mechanisms or stuff like that, just to make something that needs to happen in a project happen in a nice way.
Yeah, like your geared light, where it lifts
Yes,
up, and yeah, that's a great example of that.
yeah, I was just thinking about that one as well.
Mm.
With that one, I thought, how can I complicate a lamp by adding some gears and making it look interesting.
Yeah, how can I complicate a lamp? It's so good.
And it turned out that, well, you have the saying turn on the lights, and it has this like small wheel that you need to turn to move up the light bulb, and then it clicks on. But that was just a nice coincidence.
I think it looks amazing, and I love that simplicity, but also complexity of it. So good. But you don't make furniture and stuff like that. Like I see, this doesn't seem you're not making coffee tables, like or things like that. It seems like is that a choice or is that a yeah?
Yeah, well, I've done a little bit of furniture work. I actually did a coffee table very early in the beginnings. But yeah, often when people start making, they think about the practical things like a coffee table or a table or chairs or some closet. And to me, they're quite boring to build. And yeah, you can make it super interesting with making dovetails using nice wood. But to me, it's still, yeah, if I need a closet, I just go buy a closet. And I want to have fun in the making process. And for me, things that move and things that do something fun, yeah, I enjoyed it a whole lot more.
Yeah, it's kind of like why I liked making cars. Like I made a couple of kids' cars,
Hmm.
just soapbox cars and things like that for my kids. And I also made a battery-powered Batmobile.
Yeah, that one
But
was awesome.
like those projects, I like them because they're also practical. And they move and they function. They have a function. They do things. So that I actually it's the same with the new project now. I shouldn't call it a new project. It's been going for it's been going
It's been
forever.
going for a bit.
But yeah, it's the same because there's a little. I like the aesthetics of moving things and the engineering side of things. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, that's real nice.
I can
And
relate to it.
I
Mm.
really like what Simone Giertz once said about it. She once talked in an interview about that if you make something, it has to work. And usually, and that gave her the anxiety of building something, and she didn't want to fail at that. So she said to herself, okay, what if I design something that's designed not to work properly? Then I cannot fail at that. And I really like that mentality
That's so good. I never heard
because,
her say that.
yeah, because that way you can just enjoy the process and the outcome will be good either way.
And actually? Let's talk about your creative process. How do you get ideas? Where do you get inspiration from? And then how do you make it from like the idea through to like the finished product?
Yeah, that really differs how I get the ideas. Sometimes I'm just talking with people about some weird thing that needs to happen, and well, in my mind I make up a machine. Or but I also have moments where I think of some daily task like slicing your bread, and then I try to make a machine to think of a machine that removes some of the tasks you need to do by doing it for you in a complicated way. So that's
Yeah.
how I came with my bread decruster.
Yep.
Like I have kids, they don't eat the crust. Okay,
Yeah.
how can I take the crusts off? And then I came with this machine with a handle, and you need to pull it, and just to take the crust off. So
A quick question: Are you using that, or is it just tucked away in a in a cupboard somewhere?
yeah, it's tucked away. It doesn't work so well, but I had a lot of fun building it, and it's a fun little machine, and people smile when they see it. So that's a success for me.
Yeah, so you sort of get inspiration and then you get the idea. And do you prototype things? Do you like draw them out? Do you put them through on cardboard and build them or something like that?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Well, to go back to the process, if I have an idea, usually I think of the steps that need to happen. Like with the decruster, to keep that example, I need to cut the crust off, and I need to move it out. So at that point, I usually go Google similar machines or completely different machines that have some motion that's somewhat related.
Mm.
There are a lot of those satisfying food machine videos.
Yeah.
507 Movements is a great website to get some mechanism info about.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it has all sorts of drawings and animated drawings of just mechanisms. It's a really cool website.
What was it again? Say it again.
It's 507 Movements
507. Okay, cool.
or mechanisms, either one of them. But um, so I first think of the actions that need to happen. Then I look at mechanisms, and then I try to link them. So okay, what nice mechanism can I use to perform this action? And when I have that together, I draw everything up in Fusion 360. And yeah, from there on, I make a plan on how I'm going to build it. But usually all my projects are designed 95%.
And what happens when they don't work? How's it go from there?
Well, it depends on my time schedule and how much I enjoy that. If I have all the time of the world, that's actually when the fun starts, because then you get to, yeah, to really prototype and show your problem-solving skills. But there's also times that I need to finish a project on a Sunday, and it's 4 o'clock. I generally work or make till 5, and it's 4 o'clock, and it happens not to be working, and then it can be really stressful. And
Is that because you set yourself the deadline of, producing so many videos and or
yeah,
posting a certain time? Yeah.
yeah. And when I started, I wanted to do one video every week, and that was a complete project every week. But that for me, that was I could not make the projects in a way that I liked them. They were just too basic or too easy, or yeah, I couldn't put the effort in that I wanted.
Mm.
Then I moved back to every 2 weeks, so I had some more time to build and to design my projects, which was better. But now I'm back to once a week, and I do even bigger projects, but I split them up over several weeks and just take the viewer in the whole process. So if something doesn't work, well, great, it doesn't work. Let's see how I'm going to solve it. And there's less of a deadline because it can spread over multiple videos.
Yeah. And so that you've learned that you can't really fit in that 1 week time frame is pretty much not really what you want to do.
Well, not one project a week, because I
No.
like to do the big projects. They are way more interesting. Another thing that I mentioned that I realized is I was doing the project so quick. So I was designing it on the computer, then I built it like go, go, go. Then it was done. I made some nice shots, and then I put it away and started it all over again. And right now I can just take my time with the build, enjoy the actual building process, which is super important if you want to do this for fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, make it in a way that I enjoy it.
Last week I had brothers Make on, Matt and Johnny, and they were talking about uh, the what they do is they go onto Google Trends and they research like DIY, for example, trends in DIY, and then they'll find like the trends that are happening in DIY, and then they'll perhaps steer a project towards one of those trends and try and make their own take on it. Is that something you do with your projects at all? Do you look at what's popular or what, or do you just do your own thing?
Mainly the last. For me, the most important is that I enjoy building it. And I believe that if I enjoy building it, people will see that and enjoy watching it more. So I have in the past looked at trends or other videos that perform well. Like I made the hacksaw with the drill,
Mm.
because I saw some other videos that they performed well. So I was like, I can make that. And I made it, and I was not really happy with it because I like to design things that are properly engineered.
Yeah.
Whether they have a use or not, I like to design them that are properly engineered. And this is just like, it's just one of those hack videos basically. But it performed well, so it paid off to look at the trends.
So it does pay off, but realistically, like you're selling your soul, right? Because if you
Yeah, I
don't,
didn't. Yeah,
You didn't
it's not a
enjoy
video
it.
I'm proud of.
No, exactly right. Yeah.
So yeah, from then on, and if I realize that something works, so like I make the solenoid engine, the first one.
Which are beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they're fun to make as well, and a challenge. But I made the first one, and my audience liked it a lot and wanted to see a V4 version.
Yeah.
Well, so I made the V4. I enjoyed it. They enjoy it, and that one performed even better. So I do it in that way, but I don't really look at the trends that are going on.
And I think that says something too about now. I've seen that you've now changed your language back to Dutch, your mother tongue, which I think is really interesting because most YouTubers who have a global audience only speak English because you get a bigger audience. And I was wondering if you could go into why you went back to Dutch.
Yeah, I started my videos in English because I could get a bigger audience with that same mindset. And yeah, that worked out. I got well, my Oreo dispenser went viral, and well, my audience grew. And but as the audience grew, I realized that having a nice big audience is nice, but you get used to the number as quick as you get the number.
Mm.
Then I realized, well, that subscribers are. I like that a lot of people watch my videos, but do I enjoy it this way? And I realized that there was some layer between what I was thinking and what I was saying. And that was because of the language difference. So I thought, maybe if I go switch to Dutch, I don't have this layer, I can be more spontaneous. But the backside is that I have a less big audience. Probably people will leave, and it was a hard decision. But I filmed the video just to try it out. It was the V8 solenoid engine,
Mm.
and yeah, during that video, during the filming phase, I instantly realized that things were just so much easier and more enjoyable for me. And yeah, that was just, I had more fun building it and filming it. And so I was like, okay, I think it's worth it for me to switch back to Dutch and probably lose some of the English subscribers, which I understand, but they don't all like it. So yeah, that was a tough decision, but the fun I gained with the builds was totally worth it for me.
And what do you hope to achieve also by going back to Dutch? I mean, the fact is you got 17 million, is it, in the Netherlands?
Yeah,
Yeah.
total people.
You know,
Yes.
and realistically that's quite small, you know. But going to Dutch, I can't imagine there's so many Dutch makers that are so well known, such as yourself. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, when I got introduced to the maker community, I really liked it. And at Maker Central, there were a lot of like-minded people who also make stuff, and you can talk about with them about stuff. And well, at Maker Central was in the UK, and I noticed that in the UK, this community is quite strong. A lot of
Mm.
people make stuff. They live close to each other, so they go make stuff together, which I think is awesome. And then in the United States, I saw the same thing. That there are a lot of people, and a lot of people live relatively close to each other.
Mm.
But in the Netherlands, it's it's way smaller, and there's only like 4 or 5 known YouTubers that make stuff in the Netherlands. And I think that's sad. We need a bigger maker community here in the Netherlands. So that was also one of the reasons that I decided to make the switch to encourage people in Dutch to make things and to share it and to create a community together.
I want to give you kudos for that because I think that's a really great thing. You know, we were just talking before because I think going hard in your own country with your own tongue. So you feel more you get more joy making videos. You are more like spontaneous. You're more yourself in your videos. You get to grow in a country that has very limited like exposure to you. So you basically you become the person doing what you're doing. And you get to build your own community around you, which is really awesome. Um, and you get to inspire a lot of people in your own country. And then the what I see is interesting is you can now, once you become the person in your country that does that thing, the maker or whatever you want to call it, um, people come to you, and
Yeah,
that's where you can eventually switch over to make a living from it. Companies will say, hey, we love this project that you were doing. Do you think you could make us this, or we'll sponsor you if you make something like this, or blah blah blah. And because they're a local company, you've got a local audience, or majority of your audience is now local because you've built it up in the Netherlands. And I think it's really smart. I think it's probably the smartest move if you're going to do it for a full-time sort of job.
yeah, I think so too. And yeah, that's another thing. If I noticed, like for me, 100,000 subscribers is a lot, and then you're at WorkbenchCon, and like most people have a large following, or a lot do. You're definitely not the only one,
Yeah.
and brands know that too. So that's definitely a plus if you're in a country that has a non-English language.
Yeah, because I think like tool companies in the Netherlands are looking for people like yourself. They just need a Dutch speaking guy to do it. And hey presto, you'll be that person when you build up that community and that network behind what you do. I think it's super smart move. I don't think I could do that here in Norway, like I said, because my I'm more myself in English, and because I'm Australian, and if I was to try and do that in Norwegian, it'd be just the same as you doing it in English.
You
So
can do a hefty Australian accent.
I can't do it in Australian. I don't think I've lost too much of it because
Uh,
I've been here for too long. So like everyone thinks I'm half American because of the way I talk. So
hmm.
yeah, and that's kind of insulting, weirdly. I don't like being like, oh, whoa, 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 hey, I'm not American. Like, no, no. But I'm proud to be Australian. So when people say, "Oh, you're from America," I'm like, "No, I'm Australian." So yeah, I really I support the idea of changing to your native tongue, and I think in the long term, you're going to win with that idea. Like I
Yeah,
think that's the best thing you could do. And I would also add too, like there are plenty of makers and people that do this and are still massive internationally, because like there's a Polish guy called the Positive Couple. I don't know why he's called that, but he's making stuff too, like weird and wacky stuff. But he has a massive international following, and he never speaks hardly. And when he does, it's in Polish. So, and he has a huge following. So I don't really think the language thing is a big factor. I think the work needs to speak for itself, and
yeah. Well, it
and you, of
depends on
course.
the format of your videos, of course.
True.
I also moved a bit to a little bit more vlog style, like built with me,
Mm,
which I speak more. So if you don't speak the language, I can understand that's a bit tough to get through from time to time.
mm. Have you thought of
And
have you have you thought about putting subtitles in?
I am putting subtitles in. Yes.
Yeah, the videos I've watched haven't had subtitles in them, but I always thought it would be fun just to write stupid things. So people right in the middle of it, the video, you can be like, "What he said? What?" I just thought that was good, but I think subtitles is smart too because it keeps your international audience closer to you,
Yeah.
but of course you can still be yourself. I think it's a good idea.
Well, yeah, that was one of the tough things because I have a large international following and a small Dutch following at the moment. It's changing a bit, but and well, the people that were my early subscribers and that have supported me all those time, well, I'm now changing the language, and not everybody likes it, and I don't like the fact that not everybody likes it because I want to make content for them too. But yeah, I think that's just the thing that comes with it.
Have you thought about doing like a little intro in English, for example, and then saying, now I'm going to change over to Dutch and, you know, enjoy, basically?
In every video, you mean?
Yeah,
Or
like just to talk to your English audience so they know you're still thinking about them, you know?
yeah, well, I explained it in the first video that I did why I made the change,
Yeah.
and I add the subtitles now. But I decided to don't do things halfway and just yeah make the full on switch to Dutch.
Quick question about the subtitles. Are you doing them yourself? Or are
I
you,
used to.
yeah?
Now my sister does them.
Oh, you're so lucky. They, I hate doing subtitles. It's a huge amount of work, massive amount of work.
Well, if your starting language like yours is English, um, like I had before, I used rev.com, and you pay like a couple of euros per minute.
Hmm.
So if you make long videos, it adds up quick. But if you make short videos, it's definitely worth it.
And how cheap is that? Like how good is it actually? Like because for example, I use v.io and
Yeah,
that's pretty good, but it sometimes screws it up, especially when there's multiple people talking at the same time. It's not so great.
I
Um,
have no idea. I used it to add Spanish subtitles because in the beginning I had a really large Spanish following.
Interesting.
And
I didn't know
I
that.
don't speak a word Spanish, so I don't know if the subtitles were good.
It was probably telling them all a heap of crap you didn't know. They probably all
Well, they
this
kept
guy
coming back, so
because
must
they
have been
probably
either super funny or
yeah
good.
I reckon. I can only imagine the guy like he's like, oh, I'm gonna screw this guy up so good. He's like, I'll mistranslate this every time, and it'll just be hilarious. um, I think we'll go into story time from here.
Story time. She stared at the gown and thought, yes, this is something my husband would wear.
Have you got a story to spin?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
let's hear it.
Well, it ties back to the umbrella backpack. I made that and it didn't go viral, but a lot of people got to see it, which is interesting for a video that didn't get a lot of views.
Mm.
But I think on Instagram it got some more. And I got contacted by a German TV company from Galileo, which is a quite famous series in Germany,
Mm.
whether they could come to my shop and film it. And that day I built basically a second improved version of the umbrella backpack. It was a slight improvement, so it never made it to YouTube. But they wanted to come with two people to my workshop, which is 2 by 3 meters. And if you take all the work surface from it, it's basically like 80 centimeters by 2.5 meters deep. So it's very small. And they came with two people. And well, that was already interesting to film that in my shop and to do. But at the end of the day, they wanted to have some nice shots from me wearing the backpack and getting the reactions from people. So we moved to the town center, which is very small here, to the shopping mall, and they wanted me to walk up to someone, then deploy the umbrella,
Yeah.
and then they would ask the people like, "What do you think of this?" And well, when they asked me like, "Oh, do you want to do this?" I decided, okay, I'm just gonna say yes to everything. It's gonna be awkward, and we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And it was super awkward because you never walk up to someone, do something that should be nice or funny, and then ask them, "So, what do you think?" But
Yeah.
but yeah, I had fun at the end. After a couple of times, you get used to it. And
Are the Dutch people like Norwegians? Because Norwegians are really like closed. Like you don't enter their personal space. Neither do you approach them when they're doing something. Like that's like impolite. And that's why often, like in the store, excuse me, in the store when you see them, like you don't say hello to people. It's it's a weird, like polite. It's the opposite of like what most like English speaking countries are like, which is yeah. Is it the same in the Netherlands?
No, it's not like that. You, well, especially if it's someone you vaguely know, like you live in the same street or something like that, you greet each other. And yeah, apart from that, you can also greet each other. If you do the same activity, if you're both running, you pretend like you know each other, like we're both runners, and you say hi,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
or on a boat, you're like always wave to the boat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what I thought was very interesting, and the camera guy told me that, is that every city, people have a different way of saying that they don't want to be on camera. So in some cities, people just yell at the cameraman if they walk up to the person. And well, in the Netherlands, people tend to say that they're busy. They're too polite to say no. So they say, "Oh, I'm busy. I don't have the time right now." But you can see it with everything that they're not busy at all, because then they just sit on a bench and smoke a cigarette or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're too polite to say no.
And did you get anyone actually say anything, or did people like just like shocked, like, what is this weirdo coming up to me deploying his umbrella?
Yeah, I think we spent about, I think something like an hour, and we got like 10 people. It was not super busy, and they wanted to have a certain number.
Yeah.
And most people just said like, yeah, it was nice, and said whether they thought it would be useful or not. And we had one guy that just wouldn't stop talking. I think he rambled for like 10 minutes where he would use it and that it could be useful and that it was also a bit funny. And then he repeated it in different words. And but since what amazed me is that since it was on a German TV show, it will be dubbed, I think. They talk over it in German.
Yeah.
And the guy told me like, oh, that's not a problem. We just stop it after one sentence. And when you dub it, you can just make the sentence sound as if that's the last sentence.
Yeah.
So it's basically censored. But
Well, I just imagine all the like how much work these guys put in to see all these like non results, I guess. It's a weird thing to do, just like rock up and like you know.
yeah,
Did you like kind of finish the day just going, why did I do that? That was so stupid.
I was like, okay, yeah, it makes for nice video, of course, if
Yeah.
people see it and they're amazed or not amazed. So
I would have if you came up to me and popped that umbrella, I would have lost my mind. I would have been like, oh, that's the best thing ever. Because I was blown away when I was watching your video. I was like, what? That's the sickest idea ever. Why do people not have umbrellas on their backpacks like that everywhere? Like, you know,
because it's very happy to deploy. If you bump the backpack a little bit too hard, it just goes.
you premature umbrella deployment. Yeah, that was awkward. I thought we'd go into Inspiration Nation.
Yeah, yeah. Inspiration Nation.
This is where we get a chance to give a shout out to what I call the everyday creative heroes that inspire us. Have you got any people that inspire you?
Well, I think like a lot of people that build projects like I do, back in the days it used to be the Mythbusters that, well, they had some myth and they built some crazy contraption and they solved the myth or they didn't. But right now it's Tyler Bell. We think the same way when we talk about projects, and yeah, his projects are just awesome. I like how he reverse engineers sayings, like his recent "You can't put toothpaste back in the tube." He just took it as a challenge and made it happen.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
Tyler, I had him on the show. I think he's a great guy. Like, and it's interesting too because like I met him at Maker Central, and he seemed really, really shy, and I completely read him wrong. Like he was just sitting there, and I was like, "Who's this kid?" Like, I called him a kid. Like, I feel so bad, but yeah, I was like, "Who is he?" And like, he seems a bit like quiet. And I tried to talk with him. He didn't really come with much. And then all of a sudden, when we started talking about projects, and like all of a sudden, he just it's like he came alive. He was talking about this at the time, the bottle opener that he was making.
Hmm.
Or he wasn't even making it; he was just idea. So that was really cool, and I just saw him come alive, and that really gave my attention to him, because I often love sitting down and throwing ideas together, and making weird ideas happen. So
Yeah, I think that's for a lot of makers that, well, some people are quiet from themselves, some people are not. But when you're with makers together and you're just pitching ideas and talking about ideas, I think every maker gets enthusiastic and starts talking about stuff.
is there anything that Tyler does that you wish you could do?
Well, his camera skills are something I'm jealous of. I'm usually a bit more run and gun. I place the camera, maybe I tweak it a bit, but where I place the tripod, that's the right spot.
Yeah.
And his shots are a bit more cinematic and they look a bit more professional, in my opinion.
You have a little bit of a challenge, being that you're working in a tiny workshop. He's at least got a double garage, so
Yeah, but it's not an excuse. It might be a challenge, but it's not an excuse.
true that. Oh, excuse me. Oh gosh. All right, cool. Let's go into random question. Random question. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
This one I've now. So if you haven't been listening to any of the other ones, the earlier ones, or the latest ones, I should say, the latest ones, I tried to tie the question a little bit into your country. So this one you might get it. I don't know, but you may not. So here we go. How many bridges are there over the canals in Amsterdam?
How many bridges?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a couple hundred probably.
100? That's not my answer. Are you going to have a crack? Are you going to give me a number?
Well, judging by your reaction, 83.
83.
That's not a couple hundred, but you.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is apparently the answer of your home city. 1,281 bridges
In Amsterdam alone?
in Amsterdam alone.
That's a lot of bridges.
Yeah, man. But I guess maybe they're talking about like the footway bridges and all the other small things that are going on there. So
Well, thinking back, 83 is like ridiculously low. A couple hundred should have been my answer, but I would have never guessed 1,000 plus.
I'm learning something every day from my random questions. So that's that's something I'm gonna like take out, to everyday sort of meet up. Oh, did you know how many bridges are in Amsterdam? 1,281. Are you ready for Hack Attack?
Yeah.
This is Hack Attack!
I will not apologize for this bad intro. Any cool tips or tricks you want to share with everyone?
Well, the coolest trick that I once heard was Adam Savage say that you need to learn where you can take shortcuts and where you cannot. So when he builds stuff, the insight will be just as quick as possible, and all the things that are structural or that you're going to see, they will be in nice detail. So on my recent build for the bottle opener, I wanted to have an aluminum casing, but I don't really have the tools to work with aluminum.
Yeah.
So what I did, I built this wooden base, and then I bought thin aluminum from 0.5 millimeter thick. I cut it with the scissors, and I just glued it on.
So smart.
Which I thought was a pretty cool hack. It looks like a solid metal box now, but it's just wood with some aluminum on it.
And it weighs like a solid metal box, probably because of the weight of the wood, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does feel different. It probably weighs the same as the aluminum, but it feels different because it's thicker. And
Hmm.
but I
But
thought it was a pretty cool hack.
yeah, and that operation box looks legit cool. So, well, I think I need something like that on the sofa beer fridge, like a big lever and a button and that sort of stuff.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend this beer opening mechanism for moments where you're actually drinking beer, because even sober, it's scary.
Because I'm actually thinking like I've got to make a remote for my sofa beer fridge, and the idea is that the remote is also the bottle opener.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So like you push to order, or you can use your voice control. Like I think, to be honest, you get tired of like saying "sofa beer me," every time
I'm
you
not
want to.
sure.
Every time you want to beer. Well, I reckon you will. So I built some hardwired things in instead. So I've got a garage remote that I've now coupled to it. So every time you push that, it runs the sequence or it runs the script. So then, so I got to turn that into a bottle opener as well. So I kind of have this idea to pull it all in one, but I think that's going to be a problem. I think people are going to get trigger happy on it, pushing the button all the time. So yeah, at least with this sofa beer me, it'll know what it. Yeah, it knows when you're only saying it, whereas if you sit on the remote, it spits out a beer. It's,
But the good thing with the voice command is when you had enough, the fridge will not recognize your voice anymore.
oh, I didn't even think about that. That is the best thing ever. Oh, that's going in the video.
It's your personal safety net.
It's so good. I've lost the remote. Now I'm trying to order a beer. So beer me. It doesn't want to give me one. So
No, you're too drunk.
yeah, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Let's wrap it up. Anything you want to leave the audience with? Any sort of philosophies or things you live by?
Yeah, well, if you make things for fun, do everything you can to keep them fun. So don't put, if it's just for fun, don't put too much stress on yourself. Do the projects in a way that are fun for you and make the projects fun. Because it would be a waste to not do that.
I think that's what it's all about. Because the second you start looking at the numbers, the second you start creating things just to get views, for example, it loses the reason why you started in the first place, right?
Yeah.
I think
exactly.
that's a really good way to look at it. Where can people find you?
The most obvious channels are on my YouTube channel, The Practical Engineer, my Instagram, same name, and on Facebook. I also have a page where you can
Awesome.
find the content.
Awesome. I just want to say thanks for coming on the show, Emiel. It's been really, really nice to get to know you a little bit. It's actually nice to have a podcast on the same time zone, because I always have to like calculate, how many hours it to New York. Oh no, they're in LA. Oh, okay. Or they're in the UK. That's an hour behind. Okay, so it's really nice actually to have someone on the same time zone. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing a bit of your journey and your philosophy of making. And I want to wish you good luck with everything else that you're doing. I also want to thank everyone for listening for this podcast. If you're not following Emiel, I suggest you go now and go check him out whilst you're on the phone, and be sure to be, telling a friend too about this podcast. It would mean the world to me and my guests. If they can get a bigger podcast and get a bigger audience and get seen, then that's what it's all about. If you do want to be one of the cool kids, you can join the GA Nation. That's the Garage Avenger Nation for those guys who don't know. You can do that by heading over to Patreon. Be sure to go there. You can hear all the podcasts early, and you can also hear the pre and post podcast chats that we do off the recording. So that's something maybe some of you guys would enjoy. There's the guys that are listening are really enjoying that lately. So please go check that out. But if you cannot support me in that way, then of course you can support me just as much by going around quoting all my dumb catchphrases like, let's do this, and I'll catch you on the flip side. And then when people look confused, you can unleash and tell them all about this podcast. Or you could just create a computer virus that plays this podcast and all its episodes on repeat until they subscribe and rate and review the podcast. If you want to give me some feedback, send your DMs to @GarageAvenger on Instagram. Don't be shy, people. Please go check out Emiel, the Practical Engineer. All the links are in the show notes. Be sure to follow him. And, until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, we're out.